Evil Pixel.
Rayman, an interesting character to say the least. Introduced in the mid-90s, Rayman had every potential of being a console mascot. Ubisoft's decision to not make the series console exclusive prevented him from reaching that status. With this in mind, Rayman went on to sell millions of copies and immediately garnering a large following. Now of course, with the success of a game come sequels, of which it received many and on several platforms as well. Now we're not just talking about home consoles but portables as well. Now unfortunately, as you may have guessed, with such a huge IP, there was bound to be Rayman attempts and ideas that never made it to development. In this case being the very first Rayman development attempt for a 16-bit console. And so in today's video, we'll be discussing the cancelled Rayman for the Super Nintendo. The history of Rayman began back in the early 90s when French developer, and I apologize if I butcher this, Michael Ancel from Ubisoft conceptualized his own character named Rayman with a very interesting design. Now Ubisoft liked the idea and development began. The game was released for the PlayStation and Atari Jaguar in 1995. However, what many may not know is that the Super Nintendo was the original platform that Rayman was being developed for. Now it really is no surprise that no one knew about this, as the internet was just starting to be a thing back in 95. So the easiest obtainable media at the time regarding games was magazines. And in fact, one of the only official remnants of the original Rayman plot that exists in the media is a very small article from the Atari Jaguar version of the game. The original intended story of Rayman revolved around a young boy named Jimmy, who created a virtual world in his computer called Here It's Cool. Jimmy one day noticed a virus was taking over the virtual world he had created, and in order to save it, he had to go in himself and save Here It's Cool. It was never determined why the story concept was scrapped. As mentioned earlier, this was confirmed by early ads in the Atari Jaguar magazines where they briefly mentioned the early story plot of Jimmy. And as we all know, the idea was scrapped for a more ambiguous backstory to Rayman's origins. Now an interesting fact that I dug up that many may not know is that Rayman's character model was actually supposed to have limbs. It was only due to the hardware's limitations that prevented the team from implementing the full character design. Ancel liked how Rayman looked without limbs and kept going from there. Now in addition, the Super Nintendo version of Rayman boasted a very cool 2-player co-op mode as well. Now as far as I can tell, Rayman didn't have a 2-player mode until much later Rayman games in the series. Now I'll go ahead and admit right now, I'm not the biggest of Rayman fans. Not for any other reason other than just I never got the chance to play them. Now all of these things were confirmed in mid-2010 by French magazine Pix and Love. They conducted an interview with Rayman creator Michael Ancel, where he revealed that the Super Nintendo was in fact the original platform for Rayman, as well as the 2-player co-op mode in which the second character would most likely be Rayman's girlfriend, who was also planned to be in Rayman 4. Now, while Michael Ancel isn't active on Twitter, he does have an Instagram where he frequently posts. And in October of 2016, Ancel posted the first screenshot of Rayman for the Super Nintendo with the caption, "Pixel lovers, did this 25 years ago. The game was playable on the Super Nintendo console, but was never finished. Plus, we've lost the build. All these pixels are lost, like tears in the rain." And a few weeks later, he posted yet another picture, this time of an early prototype SNES cartridge board with the text, "Incroyable. We have found the old unique Rayman Super Nintendo ROM. It was sleeping for 24 years. Time to wake up." Now this was followed by a recorded video of the game in action with the caption, "Rayman SNES in motion. The little ugly guy is alive after 24 years night." This ROM might be the first one we burnt and contains very few stuff. We might find more ROM with other early prototypes. I just need to convince Fred, the coder, who revealed their existence, to continue the search in his vast and dangerous attic. Man, this is electronic archaeology. Now, in all honesty, you have to appreciate him for his openness. The community really should be thankful at how open Ancel is about the whole situation. As many of you may know, developers are usually very tight-lipped about these kind of things. Now, thankfully, a source on Twitter posted a few pictures and stated that he had dumped the ROM. Now, the source on Twitter used the handle @acornut, and I was unable to confirm if this user was somehow associated with Michael Ancel or how he obtained the prototype. But the important thing is that it was at least dumped for everyone to enjoy. Okay, so here's a quick update. Now, while I was editing the voiceover of this video, I did a bit more digging up and found out that the Twitter user @acornut is actually Omar Cornut, who's been involved with many well-known games such as Tearaway, Wild, the Pixel Junk series, and Dreams for the PS4, just to name a few. And he is the founder of Lizard Cube Studios. So apparently Mr. Acornut was able to get his hands on the Rayman prototype by simply reaching out to Michael Ancel via Twitter. Now, his exact quote to the website Polygon via Twitter was, "I just asked Michael, who I know, and he kindly let me borrow the cartridge to dump it." Now, what's also interesting is that Rayman isn't the only game that Cornut has preserved. His love for the retro gaming community can clearly be displayed, as he was also involved in the remake of the Wonder Boy series for the Switch and PS4, which has been praised by many. It is also said that Omar Cornut is involved in the revival of the popular classic Sega beat-em-up Streets of Rage, with the sequel Streets of Rage 4, which is due to come out in spring of 2020. Now, these developers, I feel, are really important to the industry, and it's also important to support them in their endeavors. So I'll add a link to his website and Twitter account if anyone is interested. Now let's continue. Now, the prototype itself is obviously not at all complete. In fact, there isn't much interaction at all. There are no enemies throughout the stage, but alternatively, Rayman's model seems pretty much complete. His animations are fluent, you're able to jump, and the jump detection seems to be intact. The background of the stages itself seem very well made, with interesting platform models throughout. Now, I'm curious what type of enemies were programmed and how the co-op mode would have played out. Even though the first thing that comes to mind when I think of this is Donkey Kong Country, which isn't a bad thing. But in a sort of hopeful message, Ancel did say that there may be more that can be dumped, they just need to find it. Or his colleague, whoever Fred the coder is. Now, the reason for this game's cancellation is pretty obvious, considering the development date given. Now, Rayman for the Super Nintendo was simply announced too late in the Super Nintendo's life cycle. And as much as I hate to say it, it was probably for the best with regards to the Rayman IP that development transferred over to the next-gen consoles at the time. As the past has shown time and time again, usually games released at the end of a console's life typically don't get the love that they often deserve and go underappreciated. Little Samson for the Nintendo is a good example. Now, while I'm not the hugest Rayman fan, again, not because I don't like it, but simply because I never really gave the game a shot, I know that there are hardcore fans of the IP that I know probably share the same train of thought. Now, if the game would have initially failed, I think all the sequels and spin-offs that were released afterwards would have never been made. Rayman would have probably just been swept under the rug like many other games. But unfortunately, that is what we know of Rayman for the Super Nintendo. Thank you guys for watching. Check out some of our other videos if you like. And don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and check out our Patreon if you want to support our channel and bring out more videos. And I'll catch you all next time.